The term shogun refers to a military ruler in Japan during much of its history, particularly during the shogunate periods, which spanned from the 12th century to the 19th century. The title was originally Sei-i Taishogun, meaning commander-in-chief of the expeditionary force against the barbarians, and it was first given to military leaders, who were responsible for subduing the indigenous people of northern Japan. However, the role evolved to become the de facto military and political leader of the country. Although the Emperor of Japan remained the nominal ruler, real power was held by the shogun, who controlled the samurai class and oversaw government administration. There were three major periods dominated by different shogunates. Kamakura shogunate 11,921,333, the first shogunate, established by Minamoto no Yoritomo after the Genpei War. Ashikaga shogunate 13,361,573, also known as the Muromachi shogunate. It was founded by Ashikaga Takagi, and led to a period of internal conflicts known as the Sengoku period. Tokugawa shogunate 16,031,868, the longest-lasting shogunate, founded by Tokugawa Ieyasu, brought about a period of peace and isolation, known as the Edo period. The shogunate system ended with the Meiji Restoration in 1868, when political power was restored to the emperor and the modern era of Japan began. You said, elaborate more. ChatGPT said. ChatGPT. The shogun was a title used by military dictators in Japan for over 700 years, and their rule is known as a shogunate. While the Emperor of Japan was regarded as the spiritual and nominal ruler, the real power often resided with the shogun, especially during the periods of shogunal rule. Let me provide more details on its evolution and significance. Origins of the shogun. The word shogun derives from the term Sei-i Taishogun, meaning great general who subdues the barbarians. Initially, it was a military title, granted to generals tasked with expanding Japanese influence and suppressing tribes in northern Japan, particularly the Emishi people in the early periods. The Kamakura shogunate 11,921,333. The first shogunate was established in 1192 by Minamoto no Yoritomo after a civil war known as the Genpei War between the Minamoto and Taira clans. Yoritomo became the first shogun, marking the start of the feudal system in Japan, where the shogun held ultimate political and military power, while the emperor remained a symbolic figurehead. The Kamakura shogunate laid the foundation of Japan's feudal society, with samurai warriors pledging loyalty to regional lords, or daimyos, who in turn owed allegiance to the shogun. This decentralized military government managed to fend off two Mongol invasions in the late 13th century, but the economic strain of these wars eventually weakened the regime. The Ashikaga shogunate 13,361,573. The Ashikaga shogunate, also called the Muromachi shogunate, was established by Ashikaga Takagi in 1336 after a period of civil strife. This era was marked by internal divisions and the growing power of the daimyos, leading to the Sengoku period 1467-1603, a time of nearly constant warfare among the regional lords. The Ashikaga shogunate was much weaker than the Kamakura shogunate, and it struggled to maintain centralized control. The result was a fragmentation of power across Japan. During the Onin War 14,671,477, the authority of the Ashikaga shogunate collapsed, and Japan entered the Warring States period, or Sengoku period, where various regional lords fought for control. The Tokugawa shogunate 16,031,868. The Tokugawa shogunate, also known as the Edo shogunate, was established by Tokugawa Ieyasu in 1603, after his decisive victory at the Battle of Sekigahara in 1600, which unified Japan under his rule. The Tokugawa family ruled Japan for over 250 years, bringing stability and peace in a period known as the Edo period. Key features of the Tokugawa shogunate: centralized feudalism unlike previous shogunates, The Tokugawa shogunate implemented strict controls over the daimyos, requiring them to spend alternate years in Edo, now Tokyo, under a policy called Sankin Kotai. This limited their resources and discouraged rebellion. Isolationism. Sakoku. From the 1630s onward, Japan entered a period of isolationism, where foreign influence and trade were severely restricted. Only a limited number of Dutch and Chinese traders were allowed in Nagasaki. Rigid social structure. Society was divided into strict classes: samurai, farmers, artisans, and merchants. The samurai class held privileged positions, although by the late Edo period, their role became largely ceremonial. Despite the peaceful and prosperous era, internal pressures grew. Discontent among the lower classes, economic troubles, and the increasing influence of foreign powers ultimately led to the decline of the Tokugawa shogunate. In 1853, Commodore Matthew Perry from the United States arrived with a fleet of ships, forcing Japan to open its doors to trade. The fall of the shogunate and the Meiji Restoration. In 1868, the Tokugawa shogunate was overthrown during the Meiji Restoration, a political revolution that restored power to the emperor, and marked the beginning of Japan's modernization. This ended the centuries-old feudal system and shogunal rule. The last shogun, Tokugawa Yoshinobu, resigned, and the emperor's authority was restored. This period saw the rapid modernization of Japan, as the country adopted Western technologies, military practices, and governmental structures. The samurai class was abolished, and Japan transformed into a modern, industrialized nation. Legacy of the shogunate. The shoguns shaped much of Japan's historical landscape. The systems they established, particularly in the Tokugawa period, influenced Japan's development into a strong, centralized nation-state. Even though the emperor regained power during the Meiji Restoration, the legacy of the shogunate, including the samurai ethos, continued to influence Japanese society, culture, and governance well into the modern era. The shogun title remains a symbol of military strength and authority, often referenced in popular culture and history, as the epitome of feudal Japan's leadership structure.